Hello and welcome to part 3 of the Git and GitHub tutorial series. Today we will be going over how to use Git in a development lifecycle. Keep in mind this is just one demo. It's going to be up to your team or your organization to figure out what works best for you. In that example we will be going over branching, cloning, and merging in both Git Bash and the Windows GUI. After both demos are complete, we will do a new example on the concept of forking using GitHub. Lastly, we will be going over a quick overview of what we're going to be discussing in part 4 of this video tutorial series. Okay, so let's get started with our example. As you can see on our diagram to our left, we start off with the master branch, and that's highlighted with the green background. And the reason why we have the master branch is that when you start a Git repository, everything starts off with the master branch. So we go ahead and start a new web project, say that's the example. We do some coding on it, and we eventually get to version 1 of that release. And because we wanted to get the product out quickly to our customers into production, not all of the features made it into version 1 of that product. So we're going to have a second release of this product. We already knew this, and we've already planned it out. The second release of the product is going to be a very large release. So we're going to be adding extra resources to that release. So feature set 1 will be improving upon what's already out in production, and then feature set 2 will be new enhancements to that product. So the original team will be working on feature set 1, and then we're going to add extra resources into this project, which is going to be working on feature set 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create 2 branches to this project. I will discuss in more detail the benefits of doing this when we're actually doing the demo. Moving down the diagram, so the original team working on feature set 1, they already have the code, so they can go ahead and just do a branch and start coding on it. But our second team, the new resources working on feature set 2, they don't have the code. So what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to clone the code. They're going to clone the master, create the branch, and then they can begin coding on feature set 2. So at this point, both teams are now coding towards their feature sets, and everything's going well. But then one day, your manager comes in, his hair is on fire, he's saying, there's a bug in production, we need to fix it, the customers are unhappy, what can we do? I know you guys are already working on the new release, but we need to go ahead and fix this before the next release. The development team can tell them not to worry, they can put aside all of the feature sets, all of the work that has gone into release 2, it will not be lost. They can go ahead and go back to the original release, version 1, go ahead and fix the bug, and then move back into version 2. And right away you can already see the benefits of branching right here, is the fact that we haven't touched the master branch. So we can quickly swap all of our resources back into the master branch, code on the master branch, do a bug release fix, so now it's version 1.1 with the fix in it, and then release that into production. But we haven't touched the branches, they're still there, they're still existing. Moving down the diagram some more, as you can see, version 1.1, that will get released out to the public, the customers are happy, the managers are satisfied, and now the development team can go back to working on release 2. So at this point there is a dilemma. Because the master branch has changed, we're going to have to merge those changes into those each respective branch. So in order to do this, we use the merge command. And this is where Git is really powerful. It's powerful in that it's very simplistic to do. That is probably one of the most important key features in Git and why you would want to use Git. So once the merge is complete, each team can work on their respective feature sets. Once that's done, they can go ahead and test it, make sure it's working, and at that point, they can go ahead and merge their feature sets back into the master branch. And at this point, you most likely will do some integration testing, make sure everything's working well together, and this becomes version 2 or your release or your second release out into production. This will be the demo that we will be going over today. So let's do a quick recap before going into the demo. So the first thing we're going to do is start a Git repository, and that's going to become our master branch. So we have the master branch, and we're going to code against the master branch. And eventually we're going to get version 1 of the release. That gets tested and it gets released out into production. The customers are happy with the release, so the development team begins work on version 2 of the software. So in version 2, we're going to have two major feature sets. The original team is going to work on one feature set, and we're going to bring in resources to work on the second feature set. Since the original team already has the code, all they have to do is do a branch. But the new resources that are going to come in for the second team, what they need to do is they need to do a clone and then do a new branch for themselves. During coding, a production bug was found and needs to be fixed immediately. So both teams stops coding on release 2 and starts working on the production bug fix. Version 1.1 fixes the production bug and gets released into production. At this point, each team needs to merge the new code that's in production into their respective branches. Once the merge is complete, each team can complete coding and testing to make sure that their software works. At this point, they can go ahead and do a merge back into the master branch and most likely do some integration testing, and this will be version 2 of the software. Keep in mind that this is only one example of how you can use the Git version control system. So let's go ahead and jump into the demo. Okay, so we are now in our Windows environment. So let's go ahead and start with the Git Bash demonstration. So we're going to use the command line first. I'm going to go ahead and start up my IDE, which I'm going to be using Eclipse. And we're just going to be making a simple website. So let's say we're going to make a website about selling bread. Okay, so we will make a new project, dynamic web project. Then we'll call it com.bread.demo. Go ahead and select finish. Let it create. And there is my project. So very quickly, I'm just going to copy some common files into this project. So let's see, where is it? I'm going to have a README file at the root of my project, and I'm also going to take a package.html and I'm going to stick it into my src folder. This is a common naming convention for Java docs, and I just like to have a file in my src folder so that it'll register in Git. So let's go ahead and modify this. So website to promote our bread products. Git repo demo. Okay. Save that. So this would be the start of our project. So let's go ahead and open up Git Bash. Do an ls to see the list. So we see our project, so let's go into that folder, cd, to change directories, com.bread.demo. Alright, so now we are in that directory. Let's go ahead and do a git init to initialize our Git project. Then we can do a git add dot, and what this will do is, if we do git status, it will add all of our folders into the staging area. So now we can do a git commit -m for message, initial commit of bread website. Go ahead and save that. So now if we do a git log, we should see our first commit. Everything that we've done so far is on our local PC. So the next step is that we want to be able to create a remote repository on GitHub. So let's go ahead and open up a website to GitHub. I'm already logged in, so I can just come down here and go to new repository, and then I can follow the same naming conventions that I'm using locally. So com.bread.demo, and then I can say bread products website. Since I already have a README file, I don't need to initialize one, so I can just go ahead and create this repository. Now that we have an empty repository, we need to tell our local Git how to actually talk to the remote repository. And we do that by grabbing the SSH link right here. So go ahead and copy this, go back to your command line, Git Bash, and then you can type git remote add. And in the first demonstration, I used the word origin as the name of our remote. So this time I'm going to use GitHub, and then what I want to do is I want to paste in that SSH link. Then hit enter. Now that we're done, let's do a quick git log. We do have our commit, so we can go ahead and push the first commit to our remote repository. So we can do git push, and we can say GitHub because that's what we're pushing to, and master because we only have one branch right now. It's going to ask me for my password. I had to pause the video there. I couldn't remember my password, so I just went ahead and reset it. So as I was saying, once you did your first commit, you can go ahead and push it up to your remote repository. So you can do a git push, and we named our remote repository GitHub, and then we can say master because that's the only branch we have right now. Once you do that, it'll ask you for your password, and then it will go ahead and push up that first commit. So if we come over here and we do a refresh, you'll see the files are all here and your README file is present on the first page. So let's go ahead and pretend that we're actually going to do some coding to make this website for our first release. So we'll go ahead and go to our web contents folder, and we will create an HTML file. Go ahead and name it index. And then we'll just quickly add some code here. So we can just say bread products, and then we can say list of bread products. And then we'll go ahead and save that. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that this is enough for our first release. So we'll go ahead and come back into Git Bash, and we'll do a git add dot git status, which will tell us what we've changed. Okay, so you can tell that we've changed our web contents folder. And then we can say git commit -m, and then we can say finished for first release. And at that point, what we can do is we can again go ahead and add this to our remote repository. So we can say git push GitHub, because that's what we named our remote repository, and then master. It'll ask me for my password again. Not sure if I put that in right. And that will be pushed to GitHub. So if we come over to GitHub, hit refresh, you will see that we went ahead and added an index.html page to our code. Now that the first release is done, we can go ahead and start prepping for our second release. So let me go ahead and go back to the main page. Our second release is going to be much larger than our first release, so we're going to be bringing in extra resources like we said in the diagram. So the original team, which is what you're seeing right now, they're going to start improving the index.html page. But let's say the second team, the team that's coming in to help us, they're going to create a contact page, and that's what they're going to be doing. This is the point where we introduce the idea of branching. When we first start our initial repository, we always start with the master branch. Now what we're going to be able to do is create new branches. This allows you to continue coding without having to change the master branch, which is currently what your customer is using. So let's go ahead and see how we can actually create a branch. So I'm going to go into my Git Bash, and then what I'm going to type right now is git branch. And what this will do is it'll tell me all of the branches that exist in this repository. As you can see, there's only the master branch that exists because I have not created any new branches. So let's go ahead and create a brand new branch. So I'm going to name my branch R2 release 2 and I'm going to say index because that's the file I'll be modifying. So at this point, if you do git branch again, it'll tell us that we have the master branch and I've created the r2 underscore index. Now you'll notice that the master branch is still starred because we're still on the master branch. In order to actually flip or switch to the r2 index branch, I would say git check out, and then I would say r2 underscore index. So it'll tell me that I have switched to that branch. So if I go ahead and do a git branch again, you'll notice that r2 underscore index is now highlighted. So it's telling me now I'm in that branch. And it'll also tell me right here. So it's always good to look in the parentheses to see what branch you are in. So the original group now is set up to start on feature set number 1. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up the new resources that are going to come in and help with feature set number 2. Since the new resources don't have any of the code because they haven't worked on this project before, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to copy the project from the remote repository down to their box. And the easiest way to do this is to use the clone feature in Git. So in order to do this, let's go ahead and open up a web browser to GitHub. We'll go ahead and log in. And what we're looking for is the combread.demo project. And again, what we want to do is we want to copy this link, the SSH link, into Git. So we'll go ahead and open up a terminal. And then we will, well, first of all, let's go to where we want to put the project. So I want to put it in Oracle. Oracle, and let's see, and I want to put it into JProjects. So from here, what I can say is git clone, and then I want to paste the Git repository. It's going to ask me for my password, and hopefully I remember it. And there it goes. So now if I go into this folder, go to Oracle projects, you can see now I have the bread project in this computer. So I have cloned from the remote repository this project to my computer. Keep in mind that in order for this new resource to have read and write access to this particular project, they're going to need to add their SSH key into the GitHub account. Otherwise, they will not be able to push or send new code up to the remote repository. So let's go ahead, since we have this project down on our local box, let's import it into our IDE. So we can go to File, Import, and for Eclipse, all you have to do is go to General, Existing Projects into Workspace. Then I can browse to it. So let's see, go to Standard, Oracle, JProjects, there it is. Hit OK, and hit Finish. And this will import my project into Eclipse. Open that up. There we go. So now let's take a look at what came down with our project. So if we do a git log, let's see. So let's do a change directory and go into our project. And then at that point, we can do a git log. And you can see that we have the initial commit, and we also had the commit to the first release. Now if we do a git branch, what you'll see is that it's only the master branch that came down. And the reason for this is because we never pushed r2 underscore index to GitHub. The only thing we have pushed to GitHub is the master branch. So let's go ahead and create a branch down here. So we're going to create git branch r2, and we are going to create a contacts page. So we're going to say contacts. So now if we do git branch, you'll see that we have two branches down here on our local box. So let's switch to that branch. So let's say git branch, git checkout r2, underscore contacts. So now if we do git branch again, you'll see that we switched over. So let's go ahead and start adding some code to our project. And then I will just name this contacts.html. And then let's add some quick code. And then okay, we can go ahead and save that. And then what we can do here is we can do a git add dot, and then we can say git commit dash m new to contacts page. Oh, I forgot this is a new Git app, so I need to add my global username and email. So let me pause the video real quick and add that in there so we can do our first commit. Okay, so I have added my global username and email. So now we can do a git status, and we can see that we've added a contacts.html page. So now we can do a git add dot, and then we have added that to our staging area. So now we can do a git commit dash m, and then we can say new contacts page, and that's been committed. So we can do a git log, and what you'll see is that we have a new log of our commit. So let's just say that commit is the commit we're going to do for the day. So we want to save that into GitHub. Well, in order to do this, we need to tell it where the repository is in GitHub. So we kind of have to do the same thing that we did in the Windows environment. So let's go ahead and open up our web browser again. Go to GitHub. And then we want to go to our bread project. And again, we want to copy our SSH link into our Git. So all we have to say is git remote and then add, and then we're going to again name it GitHub. And then what we want to do is we want to go ahead and paste that link in. And now that it's in, we can go ahead and do a git push GitHub. Instead of saying master, because we have not changed master, what we want to say is we want to push our branch up. So we want to push r2 underscore contacts. And then what it will do is if I come over here to GitHub and I do a refresh, is if I go to this branch dropdown, if I open it, now my R2 contacts branch is inside GitHub. So if I switch to this branch in GitHub and then I go to projects, you'll see that I have the contacts.html. Now if I go back to master, what you'll notice if I went back into web contents is contacts.html does not exist. So this is the concept of switching up in GitHub, is that you can do it through this little drop down menu. Okay, so now we're back with the original team. So if I do a refresh on the GitHub webpage, if I come to the same branch drop-down menu, you'll notice that I can also see the R2 menu. So let's go ahead and add some of our own code to our own branch. So we'll come over here and we will enhance the index.html page. So we'll go ahead and say h2, and we will do seasonal breads, and then we will have a list for that. So there will be a list for that, and that's what we're going to be saving for an enhancement for our day. So let's go ahead and get back to GitHub, do an ls, make sure we're on the right project. We are. So let's do a git status. So make sure that we actually modify the index.html page. Okay, so we can do a git add dot, and then we can do a git commit and then dash m and say added seasonal breads. And then at this point what we can do is we can let's do a quick git log first, make sure our commit's there, which it is. So we can do a git push GitHub, and then we can say, again, we don't want to push master because we haven't changed master. We want to push our branch up there, so r2 underscore index. It'll ask me for my password, and then that branch gets pushed up. So if I come over here and I do a refresh again, now we're able to see both branches along with the master in GitHub. So both teams right now are both underway coding for their feature sets. So it's at this point in our diagram, in our example, that your manager comes in and says, we have a bug in production, we need to go fix that now, we can't wait. So at this point, all you really need to do is you would come in here, you do a quick git branch. So right now we're on r2 underscore index, so we need to fix master because that's what's out in production. So all we have to do is do git checkout and then master. So if we do a git branch again, just to make sure, we're on the master branch. So if we come over here, what you're going to see is Eclipse notices that the index.html file has changed. So it just warns you about it so that now when you go back in there, you'll notice that all of the enhancements that we've made in r2 underscore index is gone. And that's because we're on the master branch. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and come down here and make changes. So we're going to go ahead and add the enhancement needed to fix the bug. So we need to put in ingredients list, and then we need the list, and that's what our customers are asking for. They need to know what ingredients are going into our bread. So we'll go ahead and save that. Come over here and do a git status. They'll notice that the index page has changed. So we'll do a git add dot. Then we'll do a git commit -m. And we'll say bug fix version 1.1 for production. So there we go. And now what we want to do is, we know this is needs to go in, we've tested it, and we're going to push it up to the remote repository. So we can say git push GitHub, and then we're going to push master up because that's the branch we just changed. It'll ask me for my password. And now we've pushed up master, we've made the bug fix, and we're good to go. So let's go ahead and do a git check out r2 underscore index. So do a quick check, do a quick git branch. So now we're back to our branch of the release number 2. So if I go back into Eclipse, it'll notice the change. So what you'll notice is that seasonal breads is back, but it doesn't have my bug fix in here. And the reason for that is because each branch is independent of each other. So in order to get the changes from master into my r2 underscore index, we're going to have to use the command merge. And it's really easy, and this is one of the reasons why Git is so powerful, is that merging is so simplistic. So we'll go back to our command prompt, and we will type the following command: git merge, and what branch you want to merge. Since I am in r2 underscore index, that's the branch I want to work in, I want to merge in master, so that's what I type, master. As you can see right now, it's giving me a conflict error, and the reason for that is because in my r2 underscore index, I was also working in index.html, and in master, I was also working in index.html. So when it tries to merge it together, it doesn't know exactly where the things are supposed to be placed, so it's going to leave it for you to resolve this matter. So let's go ahead and go back into our IDE, and it'll say it's changed. And you'll notice what happens is it tells us exactly where one starts and the other one begins. So one of them says seasonal breads, and that's what we added when we did our R2 underscore index. An ingredients list comes from when we were doing our bug fix. So what we want to do is we can say we need both of these, so we can just go ahead and remove this, and remove this, and then remove this, and say this is perfect. This is exactly what we need. So I can just go ahead and save that, and then what I can do is I can say git add dot, and then git commit dash m says, and I can say resolve merge conflict. And there we go. And now if we do a git log, you'll see that resolve merge conflict has been logged. Now, as soon as you your log gets too long, you'll get stuck into this I guess scroll view, and in order to get out of it, all you need to do is press Shift ZZ, and that'll get you out. It's a weird Vin command, unfortunately. This is as far as I'm gonna go in terms of explaining conflict management. That's just gonna be for another video, most likely in part 4. Now that our branch matches master, we can continue coding towards our feature set release for release 2. So let's go ahead and ask the last bit of code that we're going to use, or we're going to do for our release number 2. So I'm just going to add a span and say notes. So that is the last bit of coding that we need to do for our feature set, and we are done with that. So we're just going to go ahead and run through the commits again. So let's do a git add dot, and then git commit dash m, and we can say added notes completed coding. So now that we're done, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and push that up to our GitHub. So we're gonna say git push GitHub, and then we're gonna say R2 underscore index, because that's what we're working in. And then we type our password. So at this point, we are done with our release, our feature set. So let's go ahead and switch over to the additional resources that are working on feature set number 2. So now we're back with Team 2, and Team 2 knows that the master branch has changed in GitHub because we went out with a patch fix, and the original team went ahead and they fixed the bug. You might have helped them out, and they did a push to the remote repository GitHub on the master branch. So what you need to do is you need to have those changes on your box as well. In order to do this, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do a pull from the remote repository. So this is a new term, and it's one that I failed to tell you about at the beginning of the video. But a pull, what it does is it merges the code from the remote repository to your local PC. So it's very similar to a merge, except this time it's a remote repository merging with a local repository. So in order to do this, all you need to type is git pull GitHub, because that's where we're pulling from. And then you need to tell it what branch you want to pull from. So we are going to say master. So now if we type git branch and we move back to the master branch, so we'll do checkout master. So now we move to the master branch. If we go back into our Eclipse and we do a refresh, what you'll see is the ingredients list, and this is the bug that we fixed, is now in our master branch. So now let's go ahead and make sure that we can merge master with our current branch, or release 2 branch. So let's go ahead and do git checkout R2 underscore contacts, and then what we want to do is we want to do a git merge master. So now we have merged the master's code into our release 2 code. So if we go back into Eclipse again and then say yes, you'll notice that now we have our contacts.html, which is in our release 2 branch, and we also have the updates from index.html. So let's go ahead and open up contacts again and do a refresh. And then what we can do is we can finish this out. So let's go ahead and do the last bit. And let's just say we're just going to be adding in notes. And that will complete our coding for this branch. So we can do a git add dot and then a git commit dash m added notes and completed coding. So now our code is complete. So we go through the testing phase, we think everything's good to go. So now what we want to do is we want to merge this code back into master in preparations for a version 2 release. So let's go ahead and do a git checkout, and we want to move back to the master branch because that is the branch we're going to be merging our code into. Now we can do a git merge r2 underscore contacts, and now we've merged that code into it. So let's do a git log, and what you can see is you can see that merge as a commit. So in order to exit this scroll view, all you have to do is press Shift Z, and this will bring you back to the command line. So now that we're done coding, let's go ahead and push both of our changes up into GitHub. So you can just do git push GitHub r2 underscore contacts, and then you can do the same thing with master. Now I went ahead and did a push before I did a pull, and that's because I'm the only one working on this project. It's only a demo project. But as a best practices thing, and it's something for you to consider when you use Git, is that you always want to do a pull before you do a push. And the reason for that is because when you do a pull, you always get the newest code down to your box, right? And it's a good time to do that so that you don't have any conflicts when you do a push up. And two people did a push up and there's a conflict now in the remote repository. You might as well try to solve it on your local PC, and everybody else tries to work with each other on small commits in order to make sure that the remote repository doesn't have any conflicts. It's something for you to think about. But this project for this developer is now done, so we're going to move back to our Windows environment and finish up this demo. So we know the other team is now complete with their feature set, and they've already merged it into master. So what we want to do now is we want to pull and get all that changes from master so that we can merge in our changes as well. So at this point we're going to do a git branch, and right now we're in r2 underscore index, so I want to switch over to the master branch. So I'm going to say git checkout master, and then I want to do a pull to get the latest changes from master. So I will do a git pull GitHub, and then I'll say master. And then I will type my password in. And now I have all the changes from master. And at this point, I want to change. I want to merge in my code from my branch into master, and then we will be done with our release. So all I have to do is do a git merge r2 underscore index. And at this point, master now has all of our changes from both branches. So if I come in here, and I have to do a refresh, and then open up web contacts, now I have contacts.html, and I also have a brand new index.html with everything in there. So now we are prepped to do integration testing and release version 2 of our software. Hopefully you survive all of that, and now we will go into a demo of the Windows GUI. So let's try to do the same thing using the Windows GUI. So we're going to go ahead and start a new project again. So we're going to go ahead and do another dynamic web project, and we're going to name it compy.demo. And then we're going to borrow some of the same things from our bread project. So we're going to add the same readme, and we're going to steal the index.html file and put it in there. There we go. So now we have the index and we have the readme. So instead of bread, we'll say pie. And in the index, we'll just shorten this a little bit. And then we'll say pie and pie. And then we'll save that. So let's go ahead and open up the Windows GUI. And while that's opening up, let me go ahead and open up to where the project is saved. Oops, wrong one. So there is our com.py. So let me go ahead and open this up a little bit. So in order to get this project to be a Git repository, all I have to do is drag this into any of this area, and then I can say py demo website, and I won't go ahead and push up to GitHub just yet. And right away, this now has become a GitHub repository. So now all I have to do is I can double click on this, and then I can do my initial commit. So there's my initial commit. So we will go ahead and continue coding. And there we go. And this will be our first release. So if we come back in here, we can say index completed. So coding done for version 1, v1.0, and then I can do that commit. So all I have to do to push to GitHub is I can select this button, and I can give it a comment, and then I do a push up, and then I hit publish. Because the push up will only create the remote repository, the publish will actually send the code there. So now if I go ahead and go to the website, down here you will see py.demo, and you will see the code along with the new readme file. So at this point, our release 1 is done. And this is where we're going to have 2 releases again. So what I want to do is I want to come back in here again, and I want to create a new branch for my second release. And that's easily done by selecting this branch button, and then I can say R2. I can, well, R2 index. So now what you can see is the current branch is R2 index. So I'm in the new branch and I'm no longer in the master branch. So if I go ahead and continue working on this, email list, and I save that, I can go ahead and save that commit. So new email list, I can go ahead and do that commit. So right away you can see all of the commits, and I have to say the Windows GUI does show your commits rather well. And then you can go ahead and do a push up by just hitting this button right here. And then if you go back to GitHub and do a refresh, you'll notice in web contents, the Pi news is up there. Okay. So let's go ahead and switch over to our new resources. So now we're with the new resources, and the new resources, they weren't a product of the original project, so they have none of the code on their box. So let's go ahead and open up Eclipse and GitHub. And we're gonna have to handle this a little bit differently than when we use Git Bash. And that's because, and I'll explain this in a second. So let's go ahead and go to our test308 tube account up in GitHub. So in order for our new resources to be able to help you, they need access to the test.308 tube account. And right away we can find com.py, and to clone it, all we need to do is hit the clone button, and this will bring it down to our box. So now that it's on our box, we can go to the local repositories, and then we can go in here and take a look at what's saved. And one thing that you'll find interesting in the initial commit, what you will see is you will see a git ignore. And a lot of git ignore is that it's there's a lot of files that it's not going to version control, and many of these files are what's needed in order to for our project to work with Eclipse. So to get around the git ignore, which is a good thing because the only thing that's being version controlled is actually your code. It's not versioning controlling any of the Eclipse specific configuration files. So what we need to do is we need to go into Eclipse, and then we can go to File, New, Dynamic Web Projects, and then we will name it the same thing as we did before. So com pi demo, and then we will hit finish. And then if we hit refresh, what you'll notice is that since we already pulled down the code from the Git repository, and then we created the project with the same name, it went ahead and added in what we pulled down into this project. So let me explain that again. When we did a commit using the Windows GUI, we get a git ignore file. The git ignore file ignores a lot of things. You can see it right here, Eclipse, and it ignores a lot of things that Eclipse uses in order to configure itself. Since these things aren't version controlled anymore, they're no longer being pulled down with that project folder. We actually have to do a new project because we need those files down in our local Eclipse. So when you create that new project, you want to name it the same thing as the file or the folder you're pulling down. These two things will merge together, and when they're combined, they get the project that you want on your local PC. This is actually a very good way of doing it, but it is kind of very, very different to think about, because you're doing a new, but yet you're pulling in existing projects down from GitHub. So let's go ahead and create our branch so we can start working on our project. So let's go ahead and go to master, and we're going to create our own R2 underscore, and we're going to do contacts again. So we're going to create that, and so now we're in that branch. So let's go ahead and create that index.html file again. So we will there we go. There's contacts, and then we will save that. Then started coding on contacts page. Then we can do that commit, and then we can do a publish up to GitHub. Go ahead and open up GitHub while it's doing that. So now if we go to Pi again, what you'll notice is that we have master, we have contacts, and then we have index. So at this point, both of the teams are coding on the second release, and this is when we get pulled off and we need to fix a production bug. So that's what we're going to do next. So now we're back with the original team, and we find out there's a bug in production and we need to fix the production bug. So that's easy to do. We'll go ahead and go back into our Pi demo, and then we're going to switch back to the master branch, which we're already on. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and modify the index.html page again. So we're going to say paragraph, and then we're going to say ingredients for Pi, and then we'll do another paragraph, and this will be the list, and that is our bug fix. So we'll go ahead and come back in here. We'll show our uncommitted changes, and then we will say bug fix. So version 1.1 bug fix for production. Go ahead and do that commit, and then we will do a synchronize. So we went ahead and fixed production, and now we're sending that back into GitHub. So we're pushing to GitHub. Now that production is fixed, we can go ahead and go back to our branch. So our branch would be index, and this will change, of course, in our IDE, and we can continue working on our changes. So we have email list, and then we'll finish up and we'll say list of people, and we'll save that. And then I can say finished list, finished coding for v2.0, and then we'll do the commit. So we've now saved that commit to our branch, and then we'll go ahead and synchronize it. So we're pushing it back to GitHub again. Now that the sync is complete, let's go ahead and go back to our new resources and make sure that they get the new changes from master. So now I'm back with the second team, and the second team knows that the master has received a bug fix, so we need to pull down that code. So I can just double click into the Pi demo again, and all I have to do is do a sync, and it will bring down the bug fix. Be sure that the in sync button right here is actually grayed out before moving on. But now I can go into my web contents in index.html, and I will see the new changes come down. So let's go ahead and go back to our branch. So we go back to our contacts branch, which will change, and then I have to do a refresh again. And let's see, refresh. There we go. And I see my contacts. So let's go ahead and finish out this change. And we will say list of names and phone numbers. So now we've completed our feature set, and let's go ahead and commit that. So completed contacts page, names and phone numbers added, and then we can do that commit. So now it's committed. So now what we want to do is we want to move back into master again. But now what we want to do is we want to be able to merge our branch, which is our two contacts, into the master branch. So go ahead and hit the master or the branching button, and instead of actually clicking down here, we want to click the manage button right here. So at this point, now what we can do is we can merge two branches together. So all we need to do is drag down contacts, put it in that box, drag down master, put it into that box, and it'll tell me it'll update master with everything in contacts. Then we can do the merge, and that's it, we're done. So if you go back, you can see that they have a commit merge remote track from branch. Let's go ahead and sync this with GitHub. Now, in order to do the other branch, remember we were modifying the index.html in our r2 underscore index, and in master we also did a bug fix in index.html. So when we try to merge these two together, so we're going to do index this time, and then we're going to do master. What's going to happen is when you try to merge those two together, you're going to get an error, and it's going to ask you to go resolve it in the command into the Git Bash or the command line. And the reason for that is that apparently there's no really good way for the Windows GUI right now to handle this. So this is kind of where you kind of have to stop, and you have to go back and rely on the command line again. It's just one of those things where this looks like it's unfinished and they're still working on it. So that's pretty much where I'm going to stop for my Git for Windows demo, because we're pretty close to the end. I mean, the last thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to merge index and master together, and it seems like the best way to do that is to go back to the command line to do it. So let's do a quick rundown of this flowchart one more time using Git commands. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a Git repository, and we do that by using git init. And then we're going to do some coding on it, and once we're done and we're finished and we're happy with version 1, what we did was we did a git add dot, and then we did a git commit -m, and then we typed in a message. So that gave us version 1 of our software. Once we're done, we went ahead and used git branch, and then we named it something like r2 underscore index, and then we did another branch saying r2 underscore contacts. So that gave us two separate branches that did not interfere with the master branch. We were doing coding on that, repeating the same process of git add and git commit, but then we found a bug. So what we did was we went back to the master branch, we fixed the bug, did a git add, did a git commit again, made sure the bug was fixed. But once the bug was fixed, we needed to merge the code into our two branches. So we did a git merge master, and then we merged that code into both of our branches. Once that merge was complete, well, in the second branch, we actually had to do a git pull first, because we needed to get the code down from the server. And then what we can do is we can continue on coding. Once we were done, we can go ahead and merge the code back into master. The last subject of the day is forking, and as I said before, forking is not a Git term and it's not a Git command. It's been very popular amongst the open source community. The two main uses for forking is, one, you want to contribute to someone else's project, or two, you want to move that project into a completely new direction. So let's go ahead and do a quick demo of this. So let's go ahead and open up a web page to GitHub. So this is my account, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and open up another one, and I'm going to search for the account that I'm actually going to maintain. So I have another account called 3082. So I'm going to select this. So test.3082, that's the account that I'm currently logged into. This is my account. And 3082, this is going to be another developer's account. And let's say I run across this project and I'm like, I'm really interested in adding something to this project. So what I can do is I can go ahead and hit the fork button. And what this will do is GitHub will now clone that project into my account. So if I go ahead and I go back to my account and I do a refresh, you will see that YouTube Git.toot is now a part of my account, and you'll also get a different bookmark stating that this was actually forked from somebody else's account. So now what I can do is I can open up GitHub. I can go to 3082, do a quick refresh, and there is the new one. So I'm going to go ahead and clone this down to my box. And now what I can do is I can, whoops, wrong one. I can open up Eclipse, say OK, not messing with that project. And I will go to File, Import, Existing Workspace. I will find what I just cloned down. So I will take that, I will say OK, and I'll hit Finish. So now I have a clone of that project. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to add an HTML page to it. So I'm going to say test 308 tube. And I can just say, just wanted to add something to this project. Go ahead and save that. Then I'll come in here. Then I'll do a commit. So added HTML page, and I can say test tube.html. And then I can do a sync. So I'm pushing it back up to GitHub. Once the sync is complete, I can go back to the GitHub homepage, and then I can do a refresh. And what you'll see in the web contents is my new web page. So I'm done modifying this project, and I want to merge it back with the original project. So what I can do is I can request a pull request. So I can say added new page, and I can say I think this will help your project, and then I can submit that pull request. So now that pull request is going back to 308 tube. So on, let's see if I can go back. So now test or 308 tube will have a request for a pull. So let me go ahead and log into that one. So I'm going to log out of this one. And then I'm going to hit refresh. And then I'm going to log into 308 tube. So I typed in my password and I log in, and right away what I can see is I have a pull request right here. So if I click on this, I will see that test 308 tube has sent me a pull request, and I can either accept it or deny it. So this is open, and I'm just gonna leave a comment that says looks good. And then what I can do is I can say merge pull request, and then I will confirm a merge. So once I confirm or deny a merge, this will close out, and if I go back to my post or my code, you'll notice test.308 tube now is a part of the 308 tube account. So that's how you do a pull request. And if you want to do a pull request, you're more than welcome to actually do it on youtube.git.toot. I'll leave it out there, and once every few weeks I'll probably come back and see if there's any pull requests, and if there is, and you know, keep it professional, I'll go ahead and pull them in. When I started doing this video series, I thought it was going to be an hour and 2 at most. Boy, was I wrong. So we're going to be moving on to what's going to be covered in part 4, and this is probably going to be the last part. But at this point, if you finish part 3, you pretty much know all you need to know to start using Git. In fact, most of these you can probably figure out on your own, or if you decide to do a little reading. But in part 4, we're going to be going over in more details about merging conflicts, because you know it's going to happen. Eventually, you're going to have developers coding on the same file, and you're going to have to be able to manage those conflicts. We're also going to be talking about tagging, and tagging is usually done for major milestones like a release 1, a release 2, etc. And then we'll be talking about how to go back to a previous commit. You know, this is something that you might not use very often, but if you do need it, we'll go over it. And lastly, we'll go over about general tips and thoughts of how to use Git. If you survived this episode, thank you for your time, and to my subscribers, thank you for your support.